Hi guys, welcome back to Mike Loves Fanfic. Okay, I'm just gonna go straight ahead and read the next fic for you guys. Alright, next fic to you guys will be called Oh Gods and Apples. So this is my second to last fic, and then there'll be one more regular fic and then one more NCW. That goes next week, okay? So for now, I'm gonna read this figure. It's called Oh Gods and Apples. It is a reverse Hades slash Persephone, and we have mutual pinning, where you go, growing relationship, some sexual implications involved, and that's it. Okay, so let's read this summary. Is the son of the underworld, a child of darkness, a god of death. Yet he dreams about a life on the surface, reveling in all the earth has on. The other gods fear him, all except for Lenus, a child of nature and god of life. He convinces Key to visit the surface and take a bite of an apple that will allow him to stay. Key knows there will be consequences, but he thinks that for a life of Lance, it may be worth it. In the opposite world, but going to the surface, going to the earth, will be taking a different place. So we'll see how this fic would play out. So, yeah. Alright, let's do this. Okay. Yeah. Alright, let's do this. Okay. Of gods and apples. He has never been a fan of parties. Unfortunately, parties are a thing that most gods love. Socialization, the ever-flowing wine and drink, the never-ending delicacies, showing off new clothes, new accessories, new toys and gifts and powers, bragging of their deeds, never-ending contests of wit and physical prowess, the music and the flair, loud and raucous, a cacophony of chaos. There are few things gods love more than parties, except for Keith and his mother. They are both in agreement on that front, both preferring the beauty of silence and the serenity and stillness. Parties have too many things happening to too many people. You can't imagine living in the clouds amongst the other gods, being exposed to this madness day in and day out. No, the underworld suits him just fine. Him and his mother and his wolf. Even the souls of the dead often make better companions than gods. They aren't quite as loud, and they're always willing to tell interesting stories. Still, despite his lack of enthusiasm, his mother makes him attend the larger gatherings. For appearance's sake, she says. He's not sure what sort of appearance she means. He always ends up alone and on the sidelines, quietly brooding, doing very little but perpetuating the rumors and gossip that hang around his name like shadows. He's not entirely certain what this party is celebrating. Allura thinks. He vaguely remembers his mother mentioning her name. Perhaps birthday? Perhaps another achievement? He's not sure. It doesn't matter anyway. He stands up to the side, hovering near the edge of the cloud. One shoulder and hip lean against the pillar, one foot lightly crossed over the other. He holds a chalice of wine in one hand, and the rich sweetness of it lingers on his tongue as he gazes out over the edge of their cloud-topped empire, down past the skies to the earth below. The other world is his own, and the sky has its own charm. But the earth is what holds his fascination. The luscious green landscape, rolling hills and thick forests, the peaking jagged mountains and the crashing blue waters, rushing rivers and still ponds. So full of life, so bright and beautiful. What he wouldn't give to be there. He doesn't understand why gods always throw parties in the heavens when an incredibly diverse landscape rolls just below them. Hey man, the voice takes him by surprise, sudden and close. His neck snaps up, whipping around to find someone standing next to him. A man, one hand on his hip, a chalice on the other, held onto by long slender fingers. His gaze is on the earth below as Keith stares, his eyes lift, blue, strikingly so, crinkled at the corners and spark not like the sky, but like the sun glistening off the churning depths of the ocean. His lips curl at the edges, pulling to lopsided smile. Keith, right? He brows furrowed as a small frown purses his lips. Yes? Keith knows he stands out amongst the clouds. Dark hair, dark eyes, clothed in shades of midnight. This man stands out for similar reasons. He's so different. Skin like dark sand and hair like earth. Dark freckles dot his cheeks. The crown of flowers rests around his head and hangs on his brow like it belongs there. The flowing fabric of his toga is white and blue, contrasting wonderfully with his skin. Wrists clasped with gold bracers. A few gold baubles hang from his ears. This man looks like he's molded from the earth itself. He's beautiful, and Keith feels the air stolen from his lungs. The man raises an eyebrow in silence. His smirk fades a fraction, but remains amused. You have an idea who I am, do you? Keith shakes his head, not quite trusting his voice over his tongue. He doesn't think they've met. He's sure he would have remembered someone so striking. The man huffs, seemingly put out for only a moment before his smile begins to break through once more, like the sun peeking over the horizon. He turns to face Keith, holding out his hand. Lane's Lance, son of nature, child of the harvest, god of youth, beauty, and life. Oh, that would explain it. Keith eyes the hand that's extended toward him. He raises a brow, gaze lifting to meet Lance as he says, people don't usually talk to me. Lance goes, head on to the side as he rolls his eyes. Don't surprise me. They're all scared of the big bad son of the underworld. And you're not? I'm notoriously drawn to things that are considered dangerous, he says with a wicked smirk and no small amount of pride. He takes his hand, marveling at the firmness of Lance's grip, contrasting with the softness of the skin. I'm not sure if I should take that as a compliment or an insult. Lance gives his hand a sudden tug, pulling it off the pillow towards him. He catches his balance, surprised when he finds himself toe to toe with the other man. He stares, wide-eyed and lips parted. Lance meets his gaze unflinchingly, eyes slitted and lips curled to him. It's definitely a compliment. Do you mind if I keep you company? Lance smells like rain and freshly toiled earth. He stares death in the eye with a challenge gleaming deep within those blue irises. His hands are soft, but his grip is firm, refusing to let Keith go. Keith feels his own lips curl to a small smile, something foreign burning his chest. I think I like that. Okay, so this is the setup for the part. He's not usually into this part of all of whatever gods they put out, and then Lan just steps in and they met. Because Keith don't usually talk to someone. Well, they don't usually talk to him, but except for Lance, Lance has something else for Keith to throw to the out of all the parties. He's not to the party, so that's his mother, so that's his wolf. Because they live in the underworld. Lance lives in around the earth. The earth rips apart to make way for him, cracking and splintering. Steps form from the rock and dirt, and he climbs them, emerging from the newly formed crevice into the open air. As soon as he steps onto thick green grass, the crack closes up on him, rumbling and grinding, but disappearing as if it had never been. He never notices just how stale the air is in the underworld until he returns to the surface. It's fresher here, bright and vibrant as the landscape around him. He closes his eyes, letting the gentle breeze roll over his skin, tugging playfully at his clothes and carding through his hair. It smells of freshly toiled earth and the sweet aroma of flowers, of freshly fallen rain and damp earth. You came! Keith's eyes snap open, and he turns to find Lance across the field. He stands just within the shadows of the tree line, one hand against his sturdy trunk. As he steps into the sunlight, hurrying across the open field, his smile is blinding. It dazzles in the afternoon light, far more beautiful than any of the flowers that fill the clearing. He's barefoot, the loose silken folds of his white toga streaming behind him as he runs. The crown of flowers flies away from his brow, catching in the wind. He launches himself at Keith, and Keith has just enough sense of mind to catch him. Hands on his waist as he spins them around, carrying through with Lance's momentum. Then feet settle back on the ground. Arms wrap around Lance's waist while Lance slides up in his chest to rest across his shoulders. You came, Lance repeats, voice breathless and lost in the chirping birds and sway of the long grass and leaves. My king. He can't help the smile that tugs at his lips. He's never been one known for his smile, but the rebellious little devil overtakes sense of mine whenever Lance is around. Lance, that beautiful, mischievous god of nature, youth, and life. Lance, the only one who has ever dared speak to him, learn about him. Lance, who has never once showed any sign of fear. Quite the opposite, really. Fascinated by Keith's stories of the underworld, leaning into his touch rather than pulling away from it. Lance, who looks molded from the earth itself, and whose smile puts the sun and stars to shame. Lance, who plainly to see Keith's heart that's grown and flourished and taken firm roots in Keith's life. I can't stay for long, he says, a voice a whisper of regret between. Lance brows furrow, bottom lip pushing out into a stream of power, the same one that makes Keith's heart ache and his knees weak. You never do. Besides, eyes falling close, leans forward, resting his forehead against Lance. You know what I want to, but I can't. I'm the son of the underworld. I'm not meant for the surface. I've been thinking about that. Lance pulls away from him, and Keith lets him go. Lance has never been his to hold onto, but he catches Keith's hand, tugging him toward the forest. Come on, there's something I want to show you. Lance tugs him through the forest, climbing over fallen trees and shoving through bushes, taking animal trails and plucking a few berries to idly chew as they go. Despite being barefoot, he seems unbothered. They walk in silence, and Keith is fine with that. He enjoys the buzz of insects and the songs of birds, the rustle of trees and snaps of twigs, a babbling brook in the distance. All the sounds he'll never get tired of. Lance holds onto his hand the whole time, though he occasionally glances behind him, as if making sure he's really still there. When they step out of the forest, it's into a large clearing. At the very center is a large tree. The trunk is thick, roots rising from the earth in waves, branches stretching high and spreading out to cast large shadows. Lance drops his hand and steps forward, climbing easily onto the roots and reaching for one of the lower branches. He plucks an apple, hiding it gingerly in his hands as he returns to Keith. He holds it out like a peace offering, smile almost shy as he looks up at Keith through his lashes. It's an apple of the earth, he says softly, long fingers moving reverently over the glossy petals. If you eat it, you'll be bound to the earth. No one will be able to force you back to the underworld, not even your mother. You could stay here. His smile remains small, but there is a mischievous glint in his eyes. With me. Keith stares at the apple, thick and bright red, alluring and plump. He takes it, marveling at the glossy skin of it. His lips purse, brows furrowing in thought. When it looks like a lance, the man shrugs, headlong to the side. The decision is yours. It's an opportunity. All you have to do is take. He's everything he's ever wanted, resting so innocently in his head. Everything he's ever wanted, standing so beautifully in front of him. Holding Lance's gaze, he lifts the apple slowly to his lips, letting it sink into it as he takes a large bite. It's sweet and tart, and he can feel the magic of it already starting to weave around him, biting him to this plane. Lance steps forward, reaching out to incoherently wipe trail juice from Keith's chin with his tongue, and then not to instantly press that thumb to that simple mouth that curls into a delight smile. Welcome to your new home. Okay, so Lance had something else for Keith to stop by. And I'm going to the forest, and then there it is, the apple. All he has to do is to take a bite out of it, and you'll be no longer in the underworld. You'll stay in the earth for as long as you want. Or forever, forever. Come on, boy. Come on. You want the stick? The stick? Go get it! Lance holds the large branch with both hands, spinning in around several times before letting go, lobbing the thick branch into the air. Cosmo takes it after an instant. He's large and clearly doesn't belong on his fur thick and black, streaked with blues and eyes that glow like fire. As he sprints, the whispering howls of hellfire follow in his wake. And yet here, in the light of the sun, spreading across a thick field of wildflowers, tongue lolling out of his mouth. He looks strangely innocent. Lance laughs as Cosmo leaps into the air, snatching the thick branch out of the air with his mighty jaws and rows of sharp teeth. He lands heavily, skidding around in a circle, paws pushing up earth as he slides around, takes out back toward Lance, heavy paws like thunder as he runs. Lance squeals, after half laughter as he turns and runs, barely managing to scramble up a tree before Cosmo can run him over. Keith smiles from his perch on the nearby hill. He sits with his knees pulled up, leaning back on his vines, leaning back on his hands, feeling the soft grass beneath his palms and tickling his fingers. His feet are bare, dug into grass and dirt. The wind plays with his hair and the sun soaks into his skin. At first he had been another that Cosmo so readily played fetch for Lance. Now, however, he couldn't keep his pout even if he tried. Instead, he watches them with a gentle smile curving his lips, warm bubbling in his chest. Dirt rumbles beneath him, gentle vibrations that reverberate through him. A chill seeps into his bones as he hears a silent scream of the earth slipping behind him. The rock grumbles and groans. He doesn't need to turn to know his mother stands by him. He can feel her aura radiating her, cold and hot all at once, powerful and daunting. He knows it terrifies most. To him, it feels like home. I see you brought Cosmo to the surface as well, she says, crouching down next to him, forearms resting on her knees. He shrugs. He found me. I can tell him I'd go home if you want me to. No, he's always been yours, she says, a smile in her voice. You raised him. He should stay with you. Out the corner of his eye, he sees her turn toward him. When she speaks, the smile is gone, replaced by an edge of worry. You know you can't stay here forever, it says first, a stubbornness stealing against the trickle of doubt that shivers through him. I could try. The apple has bound you here. I can't force you to come home, no matter how much the other gods want me to. But you know as well I'll do that. There'll be consequences. We don't know that for sure, he says. We've never been able to spend more time than a couple of hours here. Keith, he says something. I know, he sighs, head dropping as he runs his fingers through his hair. I want to try. I want to stay. You know how much I've wanted this. He looks at her for the first time, eyes wide and pleading. She smiles, small and fond as she reaches out there. Her knuckles run along his face, covering his chin as she lifts it gently. He leans to the touch. She makes him feel small, like he's a child once more, like everything will be alright. I know, she says, far softer and far more gentle than anyone might believe the goddess of the underworld. There's a crackling of fire in her voice, not soft burn embers in the heart. I won't make you leave, but you know there will be consequences. He nods once, firmly. I'll deal with him. Her smile curves wider, just return. I know you will. You're the son of the underworld. You can handle anything. She turns then, glancing out over the field where Lance is trying to whistle the big branch from playful hellhound. Though I think you might have met your match with that boy. He feels his smile return wider until it feels the ache in his chest echo in his chest. Yeah, I think I have. So yeah, this is the part of this conversation where they're at. So onto the other side of the earth. And I don't know who she's speaking. I'm assuming it's Alora, but I might be wrong though. So this is real odd that we had to read the story because yeah, he has yet a chance to feel that all right, we're in the other side, we're in this other part of this world. Hopefully, this one will be worth it or something. So let's try that and see where this is going. So that will be great. Okay, let's go. Don't see it, he says. Brows furrowing as he scowls at the midnight sky. He looks back down at the parchment in his hands, at the dots and the lines connecting them, then tilts his gaze once more to the stars above. Here, I have an idea. Lance grabs him by the arm, pulling him down to the ground. They lie side by side, shoulders touching and arms pressed together. He takes the parchment key, tilting his head close and holding it above them. Okay, so it looks like this, right? And if you look just there, he points just right at the parchment, in a cluster of the stars overhead. Keith's eyes narrow, splits in between the drawn constellation and the stars above. When it clicks, a soft gasp escapes his lips. Scout glaring into the open-eyed wonder. I think I see it, he reads, taking the parchment back glance. He looks between the stars and the crude drawing. I see it. That one is called Leo. It's a lion. My favorite constellation. This is incredible. Keith says, letting his arm and the parchment fall to the ground beside him. He gestures to the sky with his other hand. You get to see stars every night. There's nothing like this in the world. Lance hums, gentle as a breeze. He turns on his side, propping himself up on an elbow, facing Keith. Keith's gaze, however, remains fixed on the stars above, swirling, twinkling dots that splatter across the draped midnight. So far, yet so bright. He had thought the earth by day held the most beauty, but he's finding that the earth by night takes his breath away as well. It's beautiful, Keith says with a sigh. Yeah, Lance says, thoughtful. A hand reaches out, fingers gently playing with wayward strands of Keith's hair. It is. He turns then, captured by Lance's lit gaze, eyes dark as the sky above, yet shining like the moon. His lips curl into a small smile, the same smile that always has Keith's chest feeling tight and head feeling dizzy. Lance's fingers trail along his jawline, dancing along his cheekbone, carding to his fringe to push his hair away from his face. He's close enough that he can feel his breath caress his lips. But I'm used to those stars. I'm more interested in the galaxies in your eyes. When Lance lets brush against his own, he forgets how to breathe. When Lance's hand cups his face, tilting him to more fully press their mouths together, his heart skips a beat. He tastes of ambrosia and feels like heaven. I mean, it's really beautiful when you look at the stars. That's only in the only in the earth would see it, but in the underworld, can't see it. It's just nothingness there. So yeah, Lance Keith will have a chance to get this experience of what's in this above the surface look like. Because the surface is beautiful and nice. He will have to like that. Okay, let's go. How much further? He asks, placing a hand on the tree trunk as he steps over a cluster of roots. It's just up ahead, Lance calls, scrambling over tangled roots and shoving past shrubs further down the path. He smiles at his enthusiasm, but his smile fades quickly as he feels the bark beneath his palm start to crumble. He looks to the tree, snatching his hand back. The bark comes away as dust and ash. Sickly gray seeps into the trunk, spreading from where he had touched, brittle and lifeless. Thankfully, it stops before spreading the whole tree. He grits his teeth, hand clenching to a fist. He glances behind him as he walks. Feeling inside a relief that the grass wilts beneath his steps but doesn't die. Consequences. He knew his presence on the earth would cost him. He could feel the change on the wind, bring a bite of frost in the night and chasing away the heat of the day. He wonders if Lance had noticed. He must have. But he hasn't said anything. He steps from the forest edge to find a rock face rising from the earth, climbing high above the treetops. At its base is a pool of water, surrounded by smooth rocks. Steam rises from its surface. Lance stands at the pool's edge, one foot extended and toes. Okay. Lance stands at the pool's edge, one foot extended and toes already dipping past until the surface of the pound. He looks over his shoulder, and Keith stops, pinned by that half-lidded, sultry gaze. Iris dark, the color of the ocean at midnight. Lance stares at him as he slowly lets the cloth of his toga fall. Broad, strong shoulders, a lean back, a trim waist, narrow hips, the roundness of his bottom, long legs, smooth caramel skin, glowing beautifully in the late afternoon glow, catching the golden rays of the falling sun. Keith swallows hard, and Lance's smile curves. small and challenging. Holding Keith's gaze as he slowly steps into the pool of water. He turns, stepping backwards until he's at the center. The water waist high. He holds all his arms to Keith, beckoning him with a curl of his fingers. And Keith is helpless to resist. Stumbling forward as if dragged by a string connected to his chest, he unclasps his clothes with flawless dignity, hands impatient and shaking. The fabric might have torn, but he barely notices. He can't look away from Lance as the silken cloth falls to the ground. Lance's eyes travel down his body as he steps into the water, slow and purposeful, dark and hungry. Smile absolutely predatory as Keith steps up to him. The water is far warmer than expected, nearly scalding his skin, but the heat is welcome. It chases away his nagging fears about the chill that hangs in the air, the whispered doubts about his presence here, and the consciousness it will have on the environment. Because here and now, in this hot spring and pinned by Lance's gaze, he only knows heat. When he reaches for Lance, he falls into Keith's embrace easily. When his hands grab his thighs, Lance wraps them around Keith's hips, held easily in the water. When Keith sticks his mouth, Lance responds hungrily, hands are in equal fervor. When his hands tighten on Lance's flesh, Lance squeezes tight in his hair. Their bodies move together, rocking in sync, building a fire between them that chases away by any lingering fears and doubts. Needy, hungry, desperate. That kind of sets in for Clan's part. Okay, guys, this is the part where they're making out. And that's, I mean, that's all need to know. So they're climbing on the way to whatever the tree or wherever somewhere we call it the top. Looked at it, and you also look at the pond and all the lakes in the water and such. And you see all that silkness and all of it. Yeah, it starts down to, oh boy, I cannot ask enough for the plants thirsty. Oh, hopefully you're not sick. Okay, oh, you're not sick. The music is a ghost in the wind, wrapping around them and dancing across their skin. He doesn't know where it's come from. He hasn't bothered to ask. His first thought had been enchanted instruments, as they often have for parties on Mount Olympus. However, he's heard a few wayward giggles that have led him to suspect Lance might have gotten some of his siblings or near friends playing music just out of sight. They stand at the top of a hill decorated with wildflowers. To one side, the hill slopes to a forest, to another, a lake in the distance, to a third, wild groves of apple trees. The moon rises high above them, full and bright. The stars twinkle like fireflies in the heavens above, creating a blanket of galaxies that wrap this moment uptight, allowing them to revel in the bubble of their own. The air is crisp, and the breeze that tugs at their clothes and plays with their hair brings with it a chill. He is no stranger to the cold. The underworld alternates between extremes. The goosebumps that arise on his flesh have more to do with creeping dread than they do with the chill. He's not so sure about the bombs that decorate Lance's sun-kissed skin. It pulls Lance closer, pressing their bodies flush together. He loves how firm Lance is against him, how slender he is in his arms, how the fire flickers and burns wherever they touch, how pliant and content he is as he leans to Keith. His head rests on Keith's shoulder, voice rumbling softly in his chest as he hums along with the music. Keith feels it more than he hears it. He tilts his head, resting against Lance, breathing in the smell of rain and earth. They hold each other tight, swaying gently to the rhythm of the music, wrapped up in each other, wrapped up in this moment. And when the wind whistles by, brown leaves in nearby trees are far drier than they should be. Keith notices it. In the darkness, it's easy to know how the colors of the leaves are changing and how the grass beneath his feet feels more brittle. Without the sun on his skin, the air feels colder, but here in Lance's arms, it feels warm. And when the wind plucks red and orange leaves from the trees, carrying them, stiff and brittle, past him as if to remind him the light is seeping out of the world, he closes his eyes and turns to bury his nose in Lance's hair. Consequences. He knows. But here now, with Lance in his arms, He let himself feel content, even if he knows it'll be fleeting. And when land shivers, an exhausted sigh escaping his lips drip across Keith's collarbones. And with so many things left unsaid, Keith just holds him tighter. He feels like it's coming. The consequences of just staying in that surface, above the surface, will be worse. Because I don't know what the consequence would be. Hopefully, staying above the surface will be worth it because he finally found the person he wanted to look for. That's him, Lance. The consequence of just going there is very bad, and something might bad happen to him. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? No matter how much they try to ignore it, the world around them keeps changing. The air gets colder to the point where even the sun cannot keep them warm. The leaves on the trees change color, and no matter how beautiful it may be, they know it's not a good sign. The grass beneath their feet gets brittle and brown, and the earth itself feels like it doesn't retain the heat of the sun. The chill feels permanent, and it goes worse by the day. Crops begin to fail. Animals burrow and sleep. The insects grow quiet. The trees become barren as their leaves decorate the ground. Then one day, the rain turns snow, something never before seen below the peaks of mountains. He stands at the shore of the lake edge with eyes across, one hand extended to catch the falling snow, the other holding tight to Lance's hand. He doesn't turn to look at him. He knows what he'll see. The same worry and doubt and fear that he feels himself. When he squeezes Lance's hand, Lance squeezes tighter. Everything around in that scenery, it became worse and worse because someone from the underworld might be coming, trying to get him. And the son of the underworld entering about that surface, it was like, okay, not that bad. But the consequences, I have to be mindful for it. Okay. By the time the earth splits open, groaning and crackling wide enough for the staircase to form, he'd expect. Crolia climbed the steps slowly. There's no rage on her features, just sorrow, deeply seated beneath the mask of strength that she tries to wear for him. He knows that she understands his pain. After all, she too fell for a man who she couldn't stay with. There has to be another way, Lance's voice wavering in pitch high. He clutched his head to Keith's hand, tugging him away from the steps. Keith sighs, turned to face him, saying something. You know, there's not. But one of Lance's hands sinks into the black fabric of Keith's toga, fisting tight. You ate the apple. Everything's supposed to be fine. Keith's hand falls over his shoulders slump. The feet hang heavily in his chest. I was never meant to stay on the earth. I'm a son of the underworld. I bring death with me wherever I go. Lance's fingers tighten, eyes sparkling dangerously. Not to me, he says fiercely. Keith feels his lips curving to the shadow of his mouth and leans forward to press his forehead to Lance. Never to you, he whispers. With you, I've met my match. You balance out my powers. Then stay, Lance pleads, voice in a breathless way. No, I can't. This is bigger than us. The earth is dying around me. The gods won't let me stay. Screw the gods! Keith chuckles, fingers carding through Lance's hair and coming to rest above his neck. I'm going to miss you. He tilts his head to capture Lance's lips, revels in the warmth of them, the softness, the bite of his desperation as he clings to Keith. They press close, hands groping and clinging, teeth and tongues rub despite the softness of their lips. He memorizes this moment, keeps safe and locked away. He's immune to the cold. He was born in flames of the underworld and raised surrounded by the chill of the undead. But as he steps away from Lance, feet heavy as he follows Croya down the steps and into the earth, he feels frigid fractals of ice forming in his chest. Croya cannot stay with him, and she wants Keith to come back to the underworld. She misses him, and she doesn't know where to find him. So he has no choice. But Lance really wants to stay. He really wants Keith to stay, but Keith will have to go back. Real dangerous. Place all the debts applying into this surface. Yeah, doesn't help. It sits on the edge or one of the giant cliffs that looms high over the roof sticks. One knee pulled up, arms crossed over it, other leg dangling off the edge. Cosmo curls up beside him, offering the warmth and comfort with his presence alone. He's not sure how long he's been sitting here. He's not sure it matters. An hour, a day, a month, a year, an eternity. Time is nothing, flows fluidly and yet doesn't touch him, much like the river below. He hears steps long before she reaches him, and he knows she's making it sound purely for his benefit. The air flows hot and cold in waves as she nears. He doesn't look up at his monitor, sits beside him, mirroring his pose, looking out over the river and her domain. You can't sulk forever, she says slightly. Kitsus. It's no different from what I was doing before I got a real taste of the surface, before I got a taste of it. It is. You've always been a dreamer, but you were content. Now you're miserable. Oh, fine. Frost follows in your footsteps, and it snows whenever you go. You're most certainly not fine. Keith sighs, tilting his head away. You can't deny that not even the flames of the underworld have been able to warm the numbness in his chest. I miss him. Him, Cora repeats, pointed but unsurprised. Not the surface, but him. I miss the surface too, he snaps, defensive, but the brief means prerogatively. But he's what made the surface so bright, so vibrant, so full of life. At the corner of his eye, you can see Croy nodding. He's a son of nature, a child of life, and I am a son of the underworld, a child of death. He says. Those words hang heavily in his chest. We were never meant to last. Perhaps Croy hums, thoughtful and suspicious calm. But that doesn't mean you can't. He turns to look at her, eyes narrowed at the person. What's that supposed to mean? She shrugs offhandedly. She then begins to gaze at him sidelong. Her lips tug into the smallest smiles, glimmering in the depths of her eyes. Just because you weren't meant to be doesn't mean you can't carve a place out for yourselves. Something flutters in Keith's chest, a spark of shimmer of life where he's felt so empty. Mom, you ate an apple of the earth, Keith. You're tied to it now, no matter what any of the other gods may say. But the earth was dying with me there. She shakes her head. Not dying, changing. Change is not a bad thing. She gestures to the river below and to the shadowed landscape of the domain. Death, for example, is just a change. It's not the end. It's simply part of the cycle of life. The earth too must die before it can be reborn stronger. The gods have been so concerned keeping it beautiful, exactly as they envisioned. But they haven't considered that they're stalling growth by refusing to let it grow. Growth is a cycle. Life, death, growth and change. If we let nature begin to wilt, if we let it change, the earth can have time to rest before coming back, growing stronger and new. Her smile widens. A soft fondness entering her eyes as she looks. They fear the cold so much they haven't realized there's a beauty in ice and in the stillness. There's peace, rest. The earth, nature, deserves and needs time to rest. The other gods don't see it, but perhaps we should force them to. That ceiling of hope in Keith's chest begins to unfurl, glowing slowly but brilliantly, spreading warmth throughout his lips. Are you saying you can barely dare to say it? Barely dares to lend some hope? That you should return to the surface? Yes. But she holds a finger, though it does little to stop the growing grin that splits his lips. Even her desire to be stern is cracked by her own smile. Not forever. I will allow you half a year. You'll be allowed 6 months on the surface, and then you have to return here for 6 months. The other gods won't like it, but I'll deal with them. You ate the apple, so I can allow you this. He throws himself at his mother, wrapping his arms around her and burying his head in her shoulder like he used to as a child. Her arms come around him, holding him tight as her fingers carved through his hair. Thank you, he mumbles, voice thick and wet. She hums. Soft rumbles in her chest as she says thoughtfully, I think the earth will do well with seasons. Yeah, so his mother were very concerned with Keith about going to the surface. But going to the surface forever, it would not help at all to do it. And it'll probably have to deal with just no sunny day, just everything in nature, it was bright sun and all that stuff. But the snows and the winter, the spring, I mean season, that's the purpose of it. There has to be the depth of it. Of that of ground. The springs when it comes to when the leaves lost down, grass is just empty and just brings out a lot of snow. At seasons. We always do seasons. Right in Buffalo, we always have 4 seasons around. We always do. So his mother allowed him to stay in there for 6 weeks. That's probably spring and summer, and then come back to 6 weeks for fall or winter, or it could be reversed. I might be wrong. She will allow it for going to that service for just half a month. And then half a month will be going back to the earth or going back to the underworld. Okay, let's see how it goes. The earth separates above him, creating a staircase to the surface, crackling and groaning as the rock splits and crumbles away. The lights barely touch the shadows before Keith springs to the top, stepping out into the fresh air. Surrounded by a smell of wildflowers, sun warm on his skin, wind playing with his hair. Keith! He spins around, ground closing up on him, and sprints toward him, bare feet flying across the lush grass and white and blue fabric of his toga streaming behind him. His grin is white, bright, and far more blinding than the sun. His cheeks ache with his own smile, and he barely has time to open his arm before Lance there, colliding with him, wrapping his arm around his waist as they both tumble backwards. He laughs through the sensation of free fall, laughs as they hit the ground and roll down the hill, laughs as they come to a stop with him flat on his back and then sprawl out over top of him. You're here, Lance says, as breathless as Keith feels as he props himself up on his elbows, hovering over him. His eyes sprinkle at the edges, smile wild and untamed, hair mussed and decorated with stray blades of grass and flower petals. He's beautiful. He lifts a hand, sliding knuckles across Lance's jaw to cup his cheek in his palm. Lance nuzzles to his touch, skin warm and smooth as Keith strokes a thumb just beneath his eye. I'm here, he says, feeling dazed with the reality of it all. Lance's hands slide up Keith's chest, moving the cup keys around as he leans down to capture his lips. The kiss is slow and languid, easy and gentle. Lance also like he's something precious, something to be treasured. Like he's afraid if he's too rough if he lets go, Keith will be lost. He kisses him like he's the beautiful one. Marry me. Lance mumbles into Keith's mouth, lips moving together, but Keith feels his heart stop. Refuge. What? Be my king, my husband. I want to be tied to you forever. They'll never be able to tear us apart. He's breathless, excited in the way his words sound rushed, but there's a fire there, a stubbornness, a determination and strength that comes in the wake of making up one's mind. He's thought about this. It's not a decision he makes lightly. Once keyed, and keyed, his heart hammers in his chest. A storm of butterflies threaten to choke him, buzzing like a hurricane in his face. His grip on Lance tightens, trying to ground himself in the presence of the man on top of him. You sure? I heard I'm pretty dangerous. He breathes, low and rumble. Afraid he speaks any louder, his voice might crack. Lance chuckles, breath caressing Keith's lips as the sound vibrates through him. His eyes are lidded, glinting mischievously. I've always been drawn to things that are bad. I'm a child of death. I'm a child of life. Lance's thumbs caress his cheeks. His forehead rests against Keith's. Eyes drifting close as he sighs. A single that holds so much relief and so much contentment. We balance each other out pretty well, don't you think? Yeah, he says. Hands run up and down, leans back, his own eyes closed. I think so too. As a son of the underworld, he's grown up around death. He's heard the songs of a thousand souls. He's heard the tales of a thousand lives. He's lived for 1,000 years. He's never felt more alive than he does with this god of life in his arms. Lips moving together as a symphony built in his heart, making it feel like it's beating for the first time. So, is that a yes? He already knows the answer. He gives it to me. Yes. And that does it for Of Gods and Apples. The apple might definitely affect it, but yeah. I mean, the story of Hades and Persephone is just that one meeting them to each other. It's a really, really good story. Maybe I should have a perfect thumbnail for Hades and Persephone. Very nice. Okay, so before I go, what's going to be happening next week? So there will be no spins whatsoever. This is the only ones that I have not yet been doing. Okay, for the regular fic, I'm reading Of Misunderstandings and Serenades. This is the only one that I have not read. Everything else I read except for this bit of Misunderstandings and Serenades. Okay, so that will be that. And also for NSW, well, 1 second. Only NSW one shot I have not read, and it's called You Got Me Like a Penthouse. I think I read this before, but yeah, I think I read this. Yeah, I read this before, but according to the ones that I read, it's like very too much parts. So I might have to reread some of them. So I had to put that thing there. Okay, so anyways, first one is Open Serenades, not the first one, but NCW will be the first one. I think it depends on the day. It's out of order. So you got like a pen suite. It's an NCW. There'll be some pinning or pining, growing relationship, and some sex on the balcony. Very interesting to read, but we'll keep it on. And next, and this one of my last ones before we get to the 4 new ones of misunderstandings and serenades. So it's modern college, it's mutual pinning, and misunderstandings. That is it for this video. I'll see you next time for either the NCW or the regular one shot before we hit the 4 new regular one shots. All right, guys. Bye.